Captain Jack Reynolds wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the massive alien ship land. The New Mexico desert wasn't the place he had expected to meet aliens for the first time, but here they were. His Special Forces team stood ready behind him, their faces showing both excitement and concern. "Remember," he said to his team, "these TOC warriors asked for a military meeting. They want to learn about Earth's fighting forces. Let's show them what humans can do." The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Out walked four tall, broad-shouldered figures. Their skin had a slight blue tint, and they wore armor that seemed to shift colors like desert sand. The leader, who stood a full head taller than the others, stepped forward. "I am Commander Dai of the TOC Defense Force," the alien said in perfect English. "We have watched your planet's military forces with great interest." Reynolds stepped forward and offered his hand. "Captain Jack Reynolds, U.S. Army Special Forces. Welcome to Earth." Commander Dai looked at the offered hand with curiosity before copying the gesture. His grip was firm but careful, as if he was afraid of breaking human bones. "We have set up some training exercises," Reynolds said, pointing to the obstacle course and shooting range behind them. "Would you like to see how Earth soldiers train?" Dai's eyes lit up. "We would be honored. Perhaps we could also show you some TOC training methods." Before Reynolds could answer, there was a commotion behind him. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez had stepped forward to get a better look at the TOC warriors' weapons, and one of them, a younger warrior named G, had moved to show her his rifle. They bumped into each other. Jai, surprised by the collision, automatically moved into a defensive stance. Rodriguez, running on years of training, did the same. Before anyone could stop them, they were circling each other like wrestlers looking for an opening. "Sergeant," Reynolds started to call out, but Commander Dai raised his hand. "Wait," the alien leader said. "Let us see what happens." G made the first move, reaching for Rodriguez with his longer arms. But Rodriguez was ready. She ducked under his grab, hooked her foot behind his ankle, and used his own weight against him. The much larger alien warrior found himself lying in the desert sand, staring up at the sky. For a moment, everything was quiet. Reynolds held his breath. Then G started laughing, a deep booming sound that echoed off the nearby hills. "Excellent." Commander Dai clapped his hands. "Simply excellent. In all our studies of Earth's military forces, we never saw this technique. Your warrior is skilled." Rodriguez helped G up, and the alien warrior bowed to her with respect. "You must teach me this move," he said. Reynolds relaxed as he saw the genuine excitement in the alien's eyes. These weren't the cold, calculating warriors he had worried about meeting. These were soldiers, just like his team, eager to learn and improve their skills. "Perhaps," Commander Dai said, his eyes twinkling with an idea, "we could arrange something more interesting than simple training exercises." "What did you have in mind?" Reynolds asked. "Your warrior just proved that size and strength aren't everything. We TOC love competition. It drives us to be better. What if we had a friendly contest between our forces, a way to test skills, share techniques, and see who comes out on top?" Reynolds looked at his team. Rodriguez was already chatting with G about fighting moves. Corporal Kim, his tech expert, was staring in amazement at the TOC warriors' equipment. The rest of his team looked eager for the challenge. "That sounds like an excellent idea," Reynolds said, "though we might need to set some ground rules." "Of course," Dai agreed. "We can start small, perhaps a demonstration of marksmanship, then maybe some hand-to-hand combat lessons." As they walked toward the shooting range, Reynolds couldn't help but smile. First contact with aliens had turned into a friendly military competition. It wasn't what he had expected when he woke up this morning, but he had a feeling this was the start of something interesting. Behind him, he could hear Rodriguez challenging G to try his luck at the obstacle course, while Corporal Kim was deep in conversation with another TOC warrior named Sun about the differences between human and TOC technology. This, Reynolds thought, was going to be fun. 2 days after the first meeting, Captain Reynolds stood in front of a large screen showing a map of a distant planet. Commander Dye had called it Training Ground 7, but Reynolds thought it looked more like a military playground. "This planet has every type of terrain we need," Dye explained, pointing at different areas of the map. "Forests, mountains, deserts, and even some shallow seas. Perfect for our competition." Reynolds nodded, studying the holographic display. "And it's safe. No dangerous animals or poisonous plants. We have used it for training for many years," Daz said. "The only dangers will be the ones we create." He smiled as he said this, showing his white teeth. Sergeant Rodriguez stepped closer to the map. "What exactly are the challenges going to be?" "3 main events," Commander Dye answered. "First, a shooting competition using both human and TAC weapons. Then, a survival challenge in the forest region. Finally, a capture-the-flag game using the entire northern continent." Jai, the talk warrior who had been thrown by Rodriguez during their first meeting, grinned. "And this time, I will be ready for your tricks, Sergeant." Rodriguez grinned back. "You'll need more than readiness, big guy." Corporal Kim raised his hand. "What about the tech rules? Can we use our own equipment?" Sun, the talk technical expert, stepped forward. "We will share some basic equipment. Each team gets the same tools: communication devices, scanning equipment, and basic survival gear. Nothing too advanced. We want to test skills, not technology." Reynolds watched as his team and the talk warriors discussed the details. Corporal Kim and Sun were already comparing notes on their tablets. Ta, the quiet talk strategic specialist, was studying the map with intense focus. "When do we start?" Reynolds asked. "Tomorrow morning," Day replied. "Our ship will take us to the planet. The first event begins at sunrise." That evening, both teams prepared their gear. The humans packed their usual equipment while studying the information about talk weapons they would need to use. The talk warriors practiced with human rifles, amazed at how such simple weapons could be so effective. As the sun rose the next day, both teams stood at their starting positions on Training Ground 7. The air was cool and crisp, reminding Reynolds of autumn mornings back on Earth. The shooting range had been set up in a wide valley, with targets at various distances. "First challenge," Commander Day announced, "is marksmanship. Each warrior must use both human and TAC weapons. Targets will appear randomly. Highest score wins." Rodriguez stepped up first for the human team. She picked up the TAC rifle, its sleek design glowing slightly in her hands. The weapon was lighter than it looked, and it hummed softly when she activated it. "Remember," Jack called out, "the trigger is pressure sensitive. Don't squeeze too hard." Rodriguez nodded her thanks. The first target popped up, a holographic figure at 300 meters. She took a breath, adjusted for the strange feel of the alien weapon, and fired. The target disappeared in a flash of light. "Perfect hit," Sun called out, checking the scoring system. For the next hour, both teams took turns shooting. The talk warriors struggled with the recoil of human rifles, while the humans had to adapt to the more sensitive alien weapons. Scores stayed close, with each team taking the lead several times. Finally, it came down to the last shot. Ta stepped up with a human sniper rifle. The target was at maximum range, barely visible to the naked eye. The talk warrior took careful aim, remembering everything he had learned about Earth weapons. The shot rang out. Everyone held their breath as they waited for the result. "Miss," Kim called out. "By just 2 centimeters. The human team cheered. They had won the first challenge, but only by a tiny margin. The talk warriors took the loss well, congratulating their opponents while already planning for the next event. "Don't celebrate too much," G said to Rodriguez. "The survival challenge is next, and we have been practicing Earth camping skills." Reynolds looked at the forest where the next challenge would take place. The trees were taller than any on Earth, with strange purple leaves that seemed to shimmer in the breeze. This competition was just getting started, and he had a feeling the real challenges were still to come. The survival challenge had gone well, ending in a tie when both teams managed to build impressive shelters and find enough food for 3 days. Now it was time for the final event. Capture the flag across the northern continent. Nobody expected it to go wrong so quickly. Captain Reynolds and his team moved quietly through the purple forest. They had hidden their flag well, inside a cave behind a small waterfall. Now they were hunting for the TOC team's flag. "Movement ahead," Rodriguez whispered, pointing to a clearing. Through the trees, they could see G and Sun setting up what looked like a defensive position. "They're being too obvious," Corporal Kim said. "It must be a trap." Reynolds agreed. The TOC warriors were too smart to be this easy to spot. He was about to order his team to circle around when the ground started to shake. At first, everyone thought it was part of the game. Then they heard Commander Day's voice over all their radios, something that wasn't supposed to happen during the competition. "All teams, stop immediately. The planet's defense systems are activating." Reynolds saw G and Sun jump up from their position, all thoughts of the game forgotten. The ground shook harder, and a large metal structure rose from the earth between the two teams. It was old, covered in dirt and rust, but clearly still working. "What is that?" Rodriguez asked, her hand tight on her weapon. Before anyone could answer, red beams of light shot out from the structure, scanning everything around it. A loud, mechanical voice boomed across the landscape in a language no one understood. Then it switched to something that sounded like TOC, and finally to English. "Unauthorized presence DETCTE. Initiating planetary defense protocol. Purge is sequence activated." The air grew hot. In the distance, more metal structures were rising from the ground. The purple leaves on the trees started to wilt and turn brown. "Everyone, regroup at the landing site," Commander Day ordered over the radio. "The planet's automated defense system is starting a purge. We have less than 48 hours before it becomes uninhabitable." Reynolds and his team started running. They met G and Sun on the way, all thoughts of competition forgotten. Together, they raced through the forest as the ground continued to shake. "What's happening?" Reynolds asked as they ran. "This wasn't in our records," G said, jumping over a fallen tree. "The planet must have hidden defenses from an ancient civilization. We triggered something we shouldn't have." They reached a clearing where both teams were supposed to meet. Commander Dai was already there with Tai and the rest of the TOC warriors. The ship that brought them to the planet was behind them, its engines glowing. "We need to leave," Dai said as soon as they arrived. But Corporal Kim and Sun had stopped, both staring at their scanning devices. "Wait," Kim said. "Look at these readings. The defense system, it's not just trying to kill us. It's starting a complete planetary transformation." Sun nodded excitedly despite the danger. "The whole planet is changing. The system thinks we're invaders, so it's changing the entire environment to eliminate us." A loud explosion in the distance made everyone duck. A massive column of green energy shot into the sky. "That's fascinating," Reynolds said, "but maybe we should study it from orbit." Actually, Commander Dai looked at Reynolds with an odd expression. "Our competition isn't officially over. And now we have a real challenge in front of us." Rodriguez laughed suddenly. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Jay grinned, showing his teeth. "Why waste a good crisis? First team to figure out how to stop the defense system wins." The ground shook again, harder this time. Trees were falling in the distance, and the air was getting hotter by the minute. They could hear more explosions coming from all directions. Reynolds looked at his team, then at the TOC warriors. Everyone had the same excited look in their eyes. These were special forces soldiers, human and alien. They lived for challenges like this. "Well," Reynolds said with a smile, "I guess we're still competing. But this time, we're racing against the planet itself." Corporal Kim had never thought he would work inside an alien spaceship. Yet here he was, sitting next to Sun, the TOC technical expert, both of them studying the planet's defense systems on holographic screens. "Look at this pattern," Sun said, pointing to a series of red dots appearing across the map. "The defense towers are activating in a specific order." Kim nodded, typing quickly on his tablet. "If we can predict which ones will activate next, maybe we can shut them down before they start the transformation process." The ship hovered safely in orbit, while down on the planet's surface, more green energy beams shot into the sky. The beautiful purple forests were turning gray and lifeless. Meanwhile, Captain Reynolds and Commander Day stood looking at a larger map of the planet. They had split their teams into 3 groups: the tech team in orbit, and 2 ground teams searching for a way to stop the defense system. "Team 1, report," Reynolds called over the radio. "Rodriguez here," came the reply. "G and I found something interesting. Sending pictures now." The images appeared on their screens. They showed ancient buildings covered in strange writing. G had found them while they were running from another defense tower. "Team 2, what's your status?" Commander Day asked. "Ta here," the quiet TOC warrior answered. "We've reached the central tower. It's bigger than we expected." Kim and Sun looked at the new images Ta sent. The central tower reached high into the sky, glowing with the same green energy they had seen before. "I think I understand now," Sun said suddenly. "This isn't just a defense system, it's a terraforming system." "In simple words, please," Reynolds asked. Kim explained. "It's like a reset button for the whole planet. When it detects unwanted visitors, it changes everything. The air, the ground, even the temperature, to make the planet impossible to live on." "Can we stop it?" G asked over the radio. Sun pointed to something on his screen. "Maybe. But we need to get to the control room at the top of the central tower." "Small problem with that," Rodriguez radioed in. "The tower is surrounded by energy fields. We can't get close." Just then, the ship's sensors started beeping loudly. Kim looked at the readings and felt his stomach drop. "We have less than 24 hours left," he announced. "The planet's temperature is rising faster than we thought. Soon it will be too hot for anyone to survive down there." "Wait," Sun said, getting excited. "What if we don't need to stop it? What if we just need to convince it that we're not a threat?" Everyone was quiet for a moment. Then Rodriguez laughed over the radio. "You mean we need to make friends with the planet?" "The system was built to protect against invaders," Sun explained. "But we're not invading. We're having a friendly competition." Kim caught on to the idea. "If we can access its main computer and show it our competition data, maybe it will recognize us as guests, not enemies." "And how do we do that without getting fried by the energy fields?" G asked. Kim looked at the equipment they had brought for their original competition. An idea started forming in his mind. "Remember those shield generators we were going to use and capture the flag? If we combine TOC and human shield technology, we could get past the defense fields." Sun finished his sentence, already grabbing equipment. Reynolds and Da looked at each other. The same thought was clear on both their faces. Their teams were working together better than they ever could have hoped. "New competition," Reynolds announced. "First team to reach the control room wins. But we all have to work together to get there. And no one gets left behind," Dai added. Down on the planet, Rodriguez and G were already checking their shield generators. Near the central tower, Tai and his team started setting up their equipment. "This is crazy," Rodriguez said over the radio. "We're trying to win a competition by making peace with an angry planet." "Just another day at work," Reynolds replied, watching as Kim and Sun rushed to prepare the combined shield technology. "Let's show this ancient defense system what happens when humans and TOC work together." The combined shield generators hummed loudly as Rodriguez and G approached the first energy barrier. The air around them sparkled with blue light where their shield met the planet's red defense field. "Shields holding at 80%, Kim's voice came through their radios from orbit. "You're good to go." Rodriguez took a deep breath and stepped forward. The shield flickered but held strong. G walked next to her, his large frame casting a shadow in the strange mixed light. "Look," Jay pointed to their left. "The local wildlife is trying to escape the changes." A group of small, six-legged creatures with purple fur ran past them. The animals looked scared, running from the rising temperature and dying plants. "Team 2, what's your status?" Captain Reynolds asked over the radio. "We're in position," Tay replied. His team was on the other side of the central tower, ready to create a diversion when needed. The plan was simple but dangerous. Team 1 would try to reach the control room, while Team 2 kept the defense system busy. Meanwhile, Kim and Sun worked from orbit to hack into the ancient computer systems. "Temperature rising faster now," Sun reported. "Ground level will be too hot for survival in 18 hours. Rodriguez and G reached a large door at the base of the central tower. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with the same green energy they had seen before. "This writing," Jay said, studying the symbols. "It's similar to some ancient ruins we found on other planets." "Can you read it?" Rodriguez asked, keeping watch as Jai examined the door. "Parts of it. It's a warning. Something about tests and proving worth." Suddenly, the ground shook again. New defense towers rose from the earth, these ones different from the others. Instead of shooting energy into the sky, they released small flying robots. "We've got company," Rodriguez shouted, raising her weapon. The robots swarmed toward them, their metal bodies reflecting the red light of the defense field. But instead of attacking, they formed a line and projected a hologram. "Initiating challenge protocol," the mechanical voice announced. "Prove your worth to proceed." Jai looked at Rodriguez with a grin. "They want us to pass a test. Perfect. This is still a competition after all." The hologram showed 3 doors, each with a different symbol. The robots displayed more ancient writing, which Jay quickly read. "It's a puzzle," he explained. "We have to choose the right door based on understanding, cooperation, and trust." Rodriguez laughed. "A test about cooperation for a human and a talk working together. This might be easier than we thought." On the other side of the tower, Taya's team faced their own challenge. More robots had appeared, creating an obstacle course that looked impossible to complete alone. "Team 2 has engaged with security systems," Tay reported calmly. "These robots, they're not trying to stop us. They're testing us." In orbit, Kim and Sun looked at each other as new data flooded their screens. "Of course," Sun exclaimed. "The planet doesn't just defend against invaders. It tests visitors to see if they're worthy of staying. And we're passing the test by working together," Kim added, typing faster. "Quick, send all our competition data to the main system. Show it how humans and TOC can cooperate." Back at the tower's base, Rodriguez and Jay had solved their puzzle. The door they chose opened with a deep rumbling sound, revealing a path upward. "Team 2, how are you doing?" Rodriguez asked through the radio. "Almost finished with the obstacle course," Tay replied, sounding out of breath but happy. "The robots seem pleased with our teamwork." "Don't celebrate yet," Commander Daz's voice came through. "The planet's transformation is still happening. You need to reach the control room." Rodriguez and Jai entered the tower, their shields glowing brightly against the intense energy fields inside. The walls were covered in more symbols, telling an ancient story of cooperation and challenge. "Race you to the top," G suggested with a playful tone. "You're on," Rodriguez replied, but she stayed close to her alien partner. They had learned that on this planet, winning meant working together. The huge underground bunker stretched out before them like a giant cave. Rodriguez's flashlight beam showed rows and rows of strange machines and containers. The air was thick with dust that had not moved in thousands of years. 6 hours left. Kim's voice crackled through their radios. "The planet's surface temperature is almost too hot for the shields to handle." After solving the tower's puzzles, they had discovered something unexpected. a massive underground storage area filled with artifacts from the ancient civilization. But more importantly, they had found a second control center hidden beneath the ground. "Look at all this technology," Jay said, his eyes wide with wonder. He picked up what looked like a small cube made of crystal. It started glowing softly in his hands. "Be careful," Captain Reynolds warned. "We don't want to trigger any more defense systems." The combined teams had regrouped in the bunker. Commander Dai studied a large map on the wall, showing more hidden facilities across the planet. Tai was working with Corporal Kim via radio to understand the ancient computer systems they had found. "I think I understand now," Sun's voice came through their communications. This wasn't just a defense system or a testing ground. It was a library, a place to store all their knowledge and technology. "And it's still running after all these years," Kim added. "That's why the defense system is so strong. It's protecting everything stored here." Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Parts of the ceiling began to crack, and dust rained down on them. "The planet's core is becoming unstable," Sun reported urgently. "The transformation process is affecting everything. We need to save what we can," Commander Day said, looking at Reynolds. "These artifacts, they're priceless. The knowledge here could benefit both our peoples." Reynolds nodded. "Agreed. But we also need to stop the defense system before it tears the planet apart." "Why not both?" Rodriguez suggested with a grin. "We still haven't finished our competition, right?" Jai caught on quickly. "First team to save the most valuable artifacts while also finding a way to shut down the defense system." "This is crazy," Ta said quietly, but he was already checking his equipment. "We're turning an emergency evacuation into a contest." "That's what makes it fun," Rodriguez replied, checking her shield generator. "Kim, Sun, can you guide us to the most important artifacts?" "Sending maps to your devices now," Kim said. "We've marked the items giving off the strongest energy readings. But be careful, some of them might be dangerous." They split into their original teams again, but this time with a clear purpose. The humans took the left side of the bunker, while the Tak warriors went right. Both teams moved quickly but carefully, collecting artifacts and scanning for anything that might help them stop the planet's transformation. "Found something," G called out after 20 minutes. "Some kind of control crystal, similar to what we use in our ships." "We've got what looks like a data storage unit," Rodriguez reported. "Kim says it's still active." The bunker shook again, harder this time. A large crack appeared in one wall, and hot air began seeping in. 4 hours left," Sun announced. "The upper levels of the facility are already starting to melt." Reynolds and Dai met in the center of the bunker, comparing what their teams had found. The collected artifacts glowed and hummed, filling the area with strange lights and sounds. "Your team is 3 artifacts ahead," Daz said with respect. "But we found more data storage units." "Story of our competition," Reynolds replied. "Neither side can quite beat the other." Another violent shake interrupted them. This time, part of the ceiling collapsed, barely missing Ta's position. "New plan," Reynolds announced. "Forget the scoring. Grab everything you can safely carry. We need to get out of here now." The team scrambled to secure their findings as the bunker continued to shake. The ancient library was falling apart around them, trying to protect its secrets until the very end. "Working together was the key all along," Rodriguez said as she helped G lift a heavy container. "Just like all those tests were trying to tell us." "Save the philosophy for later," Jai replied. But he was smiling. "Right now, we need to run." The journey back to the surface was like running through an oven. Even with their shields at full power, everyone could feel the intense heat. The teams moved quickly through the collapsing tunnels, carrying as many artifacts as they could manage. 3 hours until total planetary collapse, Kim reported from orbit. "The ship's sensors are showing massive ground instability." Rodriguez and G led the way, using their combined strength to clear fallen debris from their path. Behind them, Tai and Reynolds coordinated the movement of the heavier artifacts. Commander Dai brought up the rear, making sure no one fell behind. The artifacts are getting warmer, Jay warned, checking the container he was carrying. Some of them are reacting to the planet's changes. As if to prove his point, several crystal devices started glowing brighter, humming with increasing power. The sound echoed through the tunnels, mixing with the rumble of the dying planet. "Son, what's happening to them?" Rodriguez asked through the radio. "The energy readings are off the charts," Sun replied. "The artifacts are absorbing power from the planet's transformation process. Wait." There was a pause. "This might be our chance. Explain quickly," Commander Day ordered as they reached a junction in the tunnels. "The artifacts." Kim joined in, excitement in his voice. "They're designed to work with the planet's systems. If we can get them to the main control room, we might be able to safely shut down the transformation." A massive explosion somewhere above made the whole tunnel network shake. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and cracks appeared in the walls. Hot air rushed past them, carrying the smell of melting rock. "Small problem," Reynolds said, pointing ahead. The main tunnel had collapsed, blocking their path to the surface. "We need another way up." Ta stepped forward, studying the tunnel walls. "These service shafts," he said, pointing to narrow passages that ran upward. "They might still be intact." "Those are barely wide enough for one person," Rodriguez noted. "How do we get the artifacts through?" Jai looked at the containers they carried, then at the shafts. "We make a chain," he said. "Pass them up one at a time. Fastest climbers go first and pull, strongest stay at the bottom and push." They quickly organized themselves. Rodriguez and Tai, being the most agile, started up the shafts first. G and Commander Dai, with their superior strength, stayed at the bottom to help lift the heavy containers. 2 hours left, Kim reminded them, and the surface temperature is still rising. The evacuation became a bizarre relay race. Each artifact was carefully passed up the shaft, hand to hand, human to Tak, and back again. Despite the danger, their military training showed in their smooth teamwork and precise movements. "Watch this one," Jack called up as he passed a particularly bright crystal container. "It's getting more active." The container moved up the chain until it reached Rodriguez at the top. As she took it, the crystal inside pulsed with intense light. Suddenly, all the artifacts they carried began to glow in harmony. "That's it," Sun shouted through the radio. "They're linking together. Get them to the control room now." Another explosion rocked the planet. The shaft began to crack, and hot air poured in from below. "Everyone out now," Reynolds ordered. The remaining team members scrambled up the shaft as the lower levels began to collapse. They emerged into a landscape transformed by heat and destruction. The purple forests were gone, replaced by cracked earth and rivers of lava. The central tower still stood, but it was surrounded by storms of energy and debris. "Ship is tracking massive energy spikes," Kim reported urgently. "The whole planet's power grid is becoming unstable." Commander Dad looked at the artifacts they had saved, then at the tower's entrance. "One last run," he said. "All of us together." Reynolds nodded. "No more competition. This time we all win, or nobody does." The combined teams gathered their strength and their precious cargo. The control room waited at the top of the tower, and with it their last chance to save not just themselves, but the incredible legacy they had discovered. "Ready?" Rodriguez asked, looking at her fellow warriors, both human and tech. "Ready," they answered as one, and began their final sprint toward the tower. 3 months after the planet incident, Captain Reynolds stood in a large meeting room on Earth. The walls were covered with pictures of the transformed planet, taken from orbit as they escaped. Next to him, Commander Dai was showing the collected artifacts to a mixed group of human and tech scientists. The ancient civilization called themselves the Guardians, Day explained. They built testing grounds across the galaxy to find species who could work together. "And we passed their test," Rodriguez added, "even though we didn't know we were taking it." The room was filled with the soft hum of the artifacts they had saved. Each piece had been carefully studied by both human and tech experts. The knowledge they found inside was already helping both species advance their technology. The best part, G said, holding up one of the crystal devices, is that the planet is healing itself. The transformation process was designed to reverse once worthy visitors were found. Kim and Sun sat at a computer station, still working together to understand the Guardian technology. They had become good friends during their studies of the artifacts. The real question is, Sun said, looking up from his work, what do we do about next year's competition? Everyone in the room smiled. The incident had turned into a legend among both human and tech military forces. Now, other teams wanted to join in the friendly contests. Actually, Reynolds said, walking to a large screen on the wall, we have a proposal. He pressed a button, and a map appeared showing several planets. Each one was marked with different color dots. The Guardians left us more than just technology, he explained. They left us coordinates to other testing grounds. Each one is different, with new challenges and different kinds of artifacts to find. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Commander Day asked, but he was already smiling. Rodriguez stood up. We're calling it the Interspecies Military Games. Teams from Earth and Tech working together to explore these planets, solve their challenges, and recover more Guardian technology. But this time, Jai added, we'll be better prepared. No accidental triggering of ancient defense systems. Ta, who had been quietly studying the map, pointed to one of the planets. This one has underwater ruins. We'll need to develop new equipment to explore it. That's the best part, Kim said excitedly. Each challenge will force us to innovate, to combine our technologies in new ways. Sun nodded. And we'll learn more about each other in the process. The Guardians were right. Cooperation makes both our species stronger. So, Reynolds asked, looking around the room, who wants to join the first official games? Every hand in the room went up, human and tech alike. The scientists were just as excited as the soldiers about exploring more Guardian sites. We'll need rules, Commander Day said, always practical. Real rules this time, not just made up as we go along. Already working on it, Rodriguez replied. She pulled out a tablet showing a long list. Rule number 1, always check for ancient defense systems before starting any competitions. Everyone laughed, but they knew it was good advice. They had learned their lessons the hard way. You know what this means, G said to Rodriguez with a grin. We need to start training for the underwater challenges. First team to swim across an alien ocean wins. You're on, she replied. But this time, let's practice on Earth first, much safer. As the meeting continued, Reynolds looked around at his team and their talk friends. What had started as a simple military exercise had turned into something much bigger. They had found not just ancient technology, but a way to bring their species closer together. Next year will be interesting, Commander Day said, standing next to him. It certainly will, Reynolds agreed. But as long as we remember to work together, I think we can handle whatever challenges the Guardians left for us. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the military base. In the distance, a tuck ship was landing, bringing more visitors eager to join the new games. The future looked bright for both species, full of adventure, friendship, and just the right amount of friendly competition.